Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to read a part of Sir Charles Eliot's book, The East African Protectorate, where he points out or he brings out something that I found to be so interesting, and I did not expect that. And I'm thinking that kind of like shows us something about business that we might not be able to see every day. While this was like over 100 years ago, I was left wondering, is it possible that even today, when there is crisis of any kind in the society, there is a way that maybe likely some people who have access to the numbers come to the conclusion that it is good for business? I was thinking that when I read this part of the book, and I'm going to read it so that you can come to your own conclusion about it. Now, in this part of the book, he is discussing the economic performance of the protectorate, of course, and the protectorate is the land that later on became the Kenyan colony, and then it became the Republic of Kenya in the 1960s. He's talking about the numbers. He gives us actual numbers here, and I found it very interesting. Among other things that I found very interesting from these numbers is that at this time, Zanzibar was doing a lot of business, more business than East Africa Protectorate and the German East Africa combined. That Zanzibar was doing a lot of business in terms of what it was importing, the value, and what it was exporting. Of course, it can be argued that much of that value was basically coming to East Africa Protectorate and the German East Africa, and maybe whatever was exported from Zanzibar actually came from these regions. So it was counted like it's coming to Zanzibar or getting out of Zanzibar, but actually Zanzibar was just a transit point. But nevertheless, it gives us the number of imports and exports, and Zanzibar was doing a lot. But he also gives us the numbers, including budgets, annual budgets and exports and imports of the East Africa Protectorate. And this is where he gives us something that, if you are not careful, you might miss it, but it says something about his mentality and probably the mentality of other British officials, but also most likely the mentality of people who do big business. This is what he says. He says the figures for the value of articles exported from the East Africa Protectorate are 1898 to 1899, 71,145 pounds, 1899 to 1900, 121,686, and then he puts a note. This represents a year of famine, when the natives were obliged to sell what they could get to obtain food, and the exports of ivory, rubber, and hides rose considerably. Then he goes on, 1900 to 1901, 89,858. He gives a note. This represents a year of plenty when the natives were disinclined to sell or work. And then he goes on to 1901, 1902, 113,206. Then 1902 to 1903, 165,060. The increase in this last year is mainly due to an increase in the amount of ivory, copra, and hides exported. These, with the addition of rubber, grain, are the most important articles of export. And then he continues. Now, we have to look at those notes. He talks about the year when there was famine and the exports are very high, and then he talks of the year when it was year of plenty, as he calls it. The exports were low, and in fact he goes on and he says this was when the natives were maybe not motivated enough to sell or to work because they had enough food. What this tells me is that there was a problem about the natives being independent. Being like they continue with the way they've lived their life, which means doing farming, harvesting, keeping the food, subsistence farming, that is, keeping animals and taking care of their needs, like they are completely independent. That was problematic to the economy. And I'm thinking, is it not the case today that people being, as we can call it, sovereign existence, being completely independent, you grow your own food, you get much of what you need yourself from the land, is that not very dangerous to the economy? I think it is, and I think that is not encouraged, or it is discouraged. People should not be sovereign individuals, independent from the system, that they can do their farming, get their food and everything they need from the land. That's going to be problematic to the economy. Those are my random thoughts.